Hey guys, welcome to the Together for Good podcast, your guide into the real and inspired marriage and life adventure that you never knew was possible. I'm Meredith Osterhaus, the daughter of your hosts, Dan and Melodie Grootman. Mom and Dad's teaching, stories, and experiences with lots of laughing mixed in will move you to make your marriage last, all while making a difference in the world around you. Are you ready? Here we go!
Hey everybody, welcome to Together for Good podcast. Yeah, I'm Dan.
I'm Melodie.
Hey, we're super glad you're joining us. We're in the middle of a series talking about attract and attack. The things that cause us to be attracted to our spouse, especially early on, eventually kind of become something that a lot of times we want to attack later on.
Bone of contention.
Yeah, so we're talking about personalities in marriage and how to use those as strengths as opposed to obstacles that really derail your marriage. But before we go too far in this, we want to throw a shout out to some friends of ours that have just been of great encouragement to us.
Indispensable.
Yeah.
So amazing.
We want to throw a shout out to the team at 1230 Media.
All the love.
Yeah. So Carl, Katie,
Shelby.
Steve, Shelby, the whole team. In case you're wondering, what is 1230? 1230 Media, they are all the things that you see behind the scenes for Together for Good. They've been a part of it. So they do things like creating videos. Their primary thing they do is they create custom videos for churches. They also have a worship library of videos that you can tap into for your church. So if you're a pastor or if you're a creative arts person in your church, a worship pastor, you really should go check out their site. Just type in 1230 in any type of a search engine. You'll find 1230 Media. You'll find those guys and gals. But they also, from a branding standpoint, they helped us with our branding. Even the name of our of Together for Good kind of was birthed at Carl and Katie's
especially
table.
the logo with the rings, with the circles.
So we started talking about that, and Katie literally
Mexican
picks up
food,
that's
chips.
right. But Katie picks up a pencil, and she on the back of a napkin almost just begins kind of doodling.
Yeah, they're just amazing.
So,
amazing humans and so creative and
so
talented.
if you're a business owner and you need any type of media work done, branding, but here's the thing that I think makes them a little different. You're not just getting graphics done. You're not just getting a video done. You really are getting a partner. Carl has a gift to ask the right questions to help you really target in and identify what you're aiming for. So we just wanted to throw some love to our friends at 1230 Media. We're grateful for you guys.
Very.
And we highly recommend them.
You guys look them up. They may be part of a project that you want to do.
That's exactly
either
right.
personally
If it
or
has
business.
anything to do with video, anything to do with graphics, you do yourself a favor and look them up and have a conversation. Let's get it started.
1230 Media.
Yeah. So we started last week talking about 4 different quadrants of personality. There are a bazillion, I think, different models that are out there. Matter of fact, I took another one this week for something.
Test, like a personality test.
Yeah, for a project that I'm working on. So just want to refresh those of you that maybe haven't caught last week's podcast. I hope you'll go back and do that. But 4 different quadrants of personality. We have the director, the socializer, the relator, and the thinker. And all of that is really driven off of this vertical axis and a horizontal axis. Let's just admit it. All of us are different. We okay with that?
We are.
Yeah. And so how does this fit in? Why are we even talking about this on a Together for Good podcast? And, as Melodie and I were talking about that, and we probably should have spent a little more time on this last week, but the verse comes to my mind, Ephesians 5:21, where Paul says, submitting yourselves one to another, talking about husbands and wives, is in the context of marriage. As we learn more about our spouse and how they are different, we're far better able to love them well, to serve them well, and to lean into who they are and honor them in who they are.
Yeah,
so,
you can be loving me, meaning well, loving me as hard as you know how. And the key phrase there is, as hard as you know how.
That's right.
And so you do what maybe you might want done for you. And I'm sitting here thinking, man, my love tank is empty. Show me some love. And he might be like, I've been showing you some love.
Right.
And I might not be receiving it in the way that I'm wired temperamentally.
That's right.
So this is really revolutionary for a marriage. If you can understand more about yourself, and then you understand more about your spouse, and you figure out how to honor them well. But it helps all your relationships.
Right.
It helps your friendships. It helps your family. It helps your work relationships.
Yeah. So one of those basic differences, some are more task focused, some are more people focused, some are more direct, or if you will, assertive, some are more reserved or more measured. Last week, Melodie was the one that tried to take out the TV. So this is my week.
Proud that I didn't do it.
So these are just some basic differences. And so when you look at that, you have one who's more task focused and more direct. You have a director more direct, but they're more people focused, would be a socializer, and so on. So here's what we're doing today. Today we're going to focus on the socializer.
Yes, we are. Okay, you know them. You've met the socializer. This is a lampshade. It's on the head. Got it?
Yeah.
The socializer is a party waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Like, so much personality, so much life, so much fun. In fact, here's the motto.
Yep.
It must be fun.
Yeah. So when you start thinking about a socializer, what are some things, some characteristics? Really story driven. Socializers tell the best stories. They do. So when you start getting into that whole storytelling, it's not. It may not have happened that way, but it could have.
It could have.
and so the socializers, they just tell great stories. They're incredibly persuasive. They tend to be really collaborative. When you put them into a group of people, they want to get everybody involved in the party, right? You put that lampshade on your head, and it made me think about, you know how when you'll go to these Mexican restaurants,
I know what you're gonna say.
and they want to sing happy birthday to you, and they bring out the sombrero,
40-year-old hat.
Yeah.
That everybody in the entire county has worn.
Yeah, and
at least once.
Here's the socializer. They love every second of it.
Selfies. Anybody got a picture?
They are the center of attention. They want the entire restaurant to join in the singing of the celebration.
They want to stand
right?
in the chair and do it.
The director is like, they're way too cool for this.
Well,
but if you're going to do it,
we got to eat.
But if you're going to do it, hurry up and get it over with, right? The thinker, they are worried about who else has been wearing that hat. And has it been properly fumigated from person to person to person? The relator, they'll not say anything and they'll just kind of sit there, but they kind of enjoy it. But they're shy, somewhat. But it's just so fascinating.
Back,
how all
so
of these are different.
So that one scenario and the four different quadrants. I like that.
So we know that the socializers are story driven. They're persuasive. They're collaborative. They're big picture people. Don't bother them with the fine print details. They like the 35.
They start to kind of glaze over a little bit.
Yeah, I would say 35,000 foot view. It may be higher than that. But here's one of the challenges. The socializer tends to be a really big procrastinator. Here's where they can really irritate people. They'll put it off to the last second, but then they pull it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That should not have worked that well.
Something else about the socializer. They love the sound of their own voice. They will demand that they're going to be heard. So they can be really, sometimes a bit annoying.
And don't even realize it.
Don't even have any clue about it. So we wanted to walk that in there. Again, they're direct, they're more assertive, and they're more people focused. Here's where we're going to focus the rest of our time, and Melodie's going to kind of take this and run with it.
I am.
How is it that, let's say you're a socializer out here, and you've identified yourself that you're more direct, you're more people focused. How do I lean in to the different temperaments and give them what they need? So that's kind of how we're going to work it the rest of this podcast.
I'll start by telling you something kind of interesting, that Dan and I both have socializer in us.
Right.
And neither of us is that our primary. I wouldn't say, would it?
Actually, when I took the test this week, if you go back to the other slide, I am almost like right there.
So you're a little bit of socializer.
I am off the chart direct.
Director. Yeah, that's what I thought.
But I'm almost a 50-50 on the task and the people focus. Now that was one assessment. I would say I'm probably a little more task focused, but I can easily flip into the people side of it. I'm not on vacation. I'm not over here, right? But
right.
But I used to be far more over here.
Yeah.
Quite honestly.
You did.
There's been a lot of things that have changed for me. And if you know our story, you kind of maybe understand some of that.
Life kind of nudged you over a little bit. Mm-hmm.
It's moderated me. With that, we always have what's our natural temperament, and then we have an adaptive temperament. So that may be some of my adaptive temperament coming in. So
we both have we both still have a good bit of socializer in us. So this is something that both of us relate to, which is very interesting that you have two outgoing people in a marriage.
Yeah.
But we want to learn, how can a socializer love their spouse well? How can they honor them well? So Dan is more directive than he is socializer. So the socializer in me has had to learn how to honor him well in certain circumstances. So I'm going to get you to push the button.
Okay, I'll push the button.
I don't even know what we're doing. Okay, here we go. I mean, I know what we're doing. I just don't know the buttons.
The space bar works.
In fact, this is a good case in point. Land the plane. Okay, he's like, hit the button. We're ready. Here we go. Get on with it. He doesn't mean anything rude by that. He's just I'm talking too much. So land the plane.
Stop buzzing the tower. Land the plane.
So I'm going to tell him something, and it's of importance, and it's something I need him to know. It might be something I need him to take action on. Okay. He does not need me to give him a 5-minute dissertation on it. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't have 5-minute conversations. It doesn't mean we don't have hour conversations. But we kind of have different conversations. If it's action-oriented, he wants me to get right to it. Where are we going with this?
And we'll talk about the director in one of the next podcasts and how they need to lean in as well. But because sometimes you can go too far with that. But
right. But I'll say, hey, I need your attention for a few minutes. This is super important, and this is what I need you to know from this. And I'll get right to it. So if you're wanting to love someone who's a director well, you land the plane fairly quickly. WWIFM. That stands
WII.
for... I said WW.
Yeah. WWW. You too much Weight Watchers going around
here. I know.
WIIFM. It's everybody's built-in radio station.
What's in it for me? What's in it for me? Say it. How do you say it? WIIFM?
You got it.
Yeah. Okay, so what's in it for me? We're all that way a little bit. But for a director, they kind of need to know, how do I play into this? For one thing, one of the things in our marriage that I've had to learn to kind of navigate is, and this is kind of a man-woman thing too, not to stereotype too much, but he's such a fixer. I love that about him because he gives me great ideas. There are times that I don't want him to fix something. There are times that I don't even want suggestions, really. I just need you to listen. So he kind of needs to know what's in it for me. First of all, what are you asking of me? And second of all, how does this apply to me? Am I saying that kind of right?
What do you need me to do?
Right.
So oftentimes Melodie will have to say, hey, Dan, I don't need you to do anything. I just need you to listen. Great. I just got my assignment. I know exactly what I'm supposed to do.
And I literally can see the stress leave his face. He's
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Yep. So that's...
I won't tell him about the times that didn't go well and what your face looked like. All right. So that's how a socializer can love a director well. Let's talk a little bit about how a socializer can love a thinker well. Maybe you have a thinker in your life. First of all, you can be specific. Reiterate what you and I were talking about earlier about this, about how a socializer can be specific to a thinker. I like what you said about that.
Thinkers like the facts, the figures, the fine print, right? So socializers, horseshoes and hand grenades are close enough, right? If you're in the neighborhood, it's no problem. Socializers can have a tend to be hyperbolous with their conversation.
Right.
But thinkers want it to be exact.
They're like, wait a minute.
They tend to want it to be flawless,
not what Google
right?
said. Yeah.
That's right. That's not right. And as a result, what will happen is the thinker will basically blow off the socializer as they're not being serious. They're not really. They're not taking me serious.
My time is valuable.
Right. Right. And it really kind of discredits them.
Right.
So,
So don't overthink this. Don't get all worried about it. But do be aware of it, that in that temperament, it will bless them if you are specific. And you've already kind of thought through a lot of it before you talk to them about it, especially if it's something of importance. So we're going to be specific, going to be prepared. If you guys are going to be working together on something, and you come to the table already knowing a lot about it and being prepared to direct it, that will be so much better.
Remember one of the challenges for the socializer. They tend to procrastinate. The thinker doesn't tend to procrastinate as much. No. They can.
What is it? Your lack of preparation is
doesn't constitute an emergency on my part.
It's probably on every one of them.
So what can happen is, and by the way, this kind of is a director thing too. Be prepared. Show honor to them in the things that are important to them, and that way you'll get a lot of good feedback.
And some of this will make more sense to you too when we get into each individual temperament. Today we're on socializer, so we're talking a lot about socializers. When we get into thinker, we'll get into a little more of the meat there.
Right.
If a socializer is going to love a relator well, now I have a lot of relator in me as well. In fact, I'm probably more relator.
Yeah.
Then the socializer needs to, we're going to call it slow down. Now that doesn't mean you need to be mute. It doesn't mean you need to talk slower. It just means you need to be more aware.
But you need to slow your roll.
Slow your roll. Read the body language of who you're talking to.
Yeah. You can just kind of literally overwhelm them with the amount of your words and the intensity of your words.
How loud you are, how large you are.
That's right.
With a relator, it really helps to sit down with them.
That's exactly
right. Sit down beside them.
I've learned that one. Yep.
Otherwise, they might feel like you're lording over them, or you're too loud, too large. So slow down and then listen up. We almost said shut up, but we don't want you to shut up because you don't need to be mute, like I said before.
You'll never find a socializer that's mute.
Yeah, but listen as much as you talk.
That's right.
Honestly, both of us having some socializer in us, sometimes we struggle for who's going to talk when.
Yeah.
Right.
And usually my director wins over the relator, so I tend to push you over, and so that's one of those things I'm trying to constantly be aware of. Self-awareness is such a wonderful thing.
Oh my goodness, it's hard.
Well, it helps to grow up one day. But listen, here's the reality. I hope that you'll buy into this. If you're a socializer, and the odds are that you're married to someone who's not a socializer. Right. If you will become an expert on who they are. So what you can do in submitting yourselves to them, right? Giving them what they need, leaning into who they are, listening to them, reading them so that you can give them what they need. It will go a long way in honoring your spouse and creating a marriage that's just so much sweeter, so much less conflict. And when you do have conflict, you're able to actually come to a final point. You're able to come to a conclusion as opposed to it just keeps spinning on.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking about how easy it is to sometimes say, well, I shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to find out about you. You're a big boy. How many times have I heard that? He's a grown up. She's a grown up. Can we all just... That is not the mind of Christ.
That's right.
The mind of Christ is one of grace and mutual submission. We're going to talk more about that next season as we get into the next year, but about honoring each other and me really getting into his world and getting into his head and getting into his heart. And then I was saying to him earlier tonight, I was saying, we don't do it for selfish reasons, but as I learn to love him well, it also benefits me because our life is happier. I'm figuring out how to love you well, and then you're figuring out how to love me well. And it's amazing the difference it makes.
This is really a part of submitting and serving your spouse. You do those things, and it's hard to go wrong. Hey, we also want to remind you, we made an announcement a couple of weeks ago. We're super excited about the upcoming marriage summit that we're going to be hosting. It's going to be a smaller group. This isn't going to be a big event.
Great. It's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun. Do not think it's not going to be fun.
Hey, make sure that you make a note of the date. April 24th, Friday, April 24th through Sunday, April 26th. We'll start with dinner on Friday. We'll end with lunch on Saturday. So you'll be home. On Sunday. So you'll be home Plenty of time. That's right.
Great.
That way you can already start knowing how to plan. But hey, listen, if you're like, we really want to be a part of that, we still have details we're trying to get nailed down. Thanks for your patience. Some of you are already asking, and we're excited about that. But you need to go ahead and let us know, hey, we want to know. So will you do this?
It would help us to
Here's
know
the best email address. wearetogetherforgood@gmail.com. Shoot an email to us. Go to our contact page. Just get us a word somehow or another. Hey, we're interested in the Marriage Summit. All right, we'll have more information coming up soon. So hey, listen, what a great night. Hey, socializers out there, make sure that you don't just say, "Hey, that's who I am." Make sure you're leaning into who your spouse is, so you can give them exactly what they need. That's the way you're going to be able to build a marriage that's together for good.
So this week's show may be over, but the work has just begun. Be sure to check out the great resources and references mentioned in today's show in the show notes at wearetogetherforgood.com/podcast. It is also super easy to subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. Hey, if this podcast has been an encouragement to you in your marriage and life journey, please let the people in your world know. Help us spread the word about the Together for Good adventure by following us on our Facebook and Instagram pages. This would go a long way to help get the word out. Don't forget to check out our website, wearetogetherforgood.com, for free resources, archived podcast episodes, and other ways you can experience a life and marriage that is together for good.